please welcome on stage Gene Fitzpatrick.
Hello! Oh God, look at that wee woman in the front row. That's lovely music, isn't it? God, there's a queer good-looking blonde sitting there. And not a man in sight. Well, only one, and he's not really worth worrying about. And there's a wee man there. Hello, son, how are you? Is that the whole family you're with you, is it? Jeez, you're like the Waltons. Here, come here. I know this is a comedy show, but I'm in wild bad form in it, you know. I'm worried about the wife. Honest to God. I think she's in drugs. For I was coming out the night and the phone rang and I lifted it and this voice says, is the dope still there? And our youngest one came into the bedroom this morning and says, Daddy, I'm 15, can I wear a bra? I says, now listen, Richard. And the wife's spoiled rotten. Honest, Christmas is only over and I'm broke. Look, that's all I have left, like a quid. Do you know what she got for Christmas? Plastic surgery. She did. I cut up her Visa card. She got her Visa card stolen and I didn't report it to the police. For the fella that stole it wasn't spending as much as she was. Christmas is awful dear, isn't it, mister? You would know that big family of yours, wouldn't you? Youngest one says, Dad, I've me and a bike seen in Wellworths. I says, how much is it, son? He says, it's 250 quid. I says, you may keep your ass on it, your eye'll never be on it. I told that wrong, so I did. I did. That's what they call nerves at the beginning. So it is. But I don't care anyhow. They can cut it out. I couldn't care less anyhow. 4 cameras and all. Bigger crowd in our house before I left. I was just thinking when I was coming up the road tonight too, me and the Vision, that's the one I married. You want to see the shape of her now? Do you know when you get married, you know, mister, would you join hands and we'll try and contact the living? You know when you get married and the wife says, I'll always be like this. God, you seen the cut of her now? I phoned up the boss in the theatre here. I says, I mightn't make it up to the show on Sunday night. This is why what happened. I says, I had a bad accident on Tuesday night. She says, what happened? I said, I was climbing over the wife to get into bed and I burnt my ass in the light bulb. And she's, honest, she was in every diet known to mankind. She was in the Herbalife, the Slim Fast, the Uni Slim. She went in the fish diet for 12 weeks. Never ate nothing, only fish. She never lost a pound because she's a queer craving for worms. And we're married now 27 years. Mrs., what are you going, for? You're not living, Mama. 27 years, honest to God, it's desperate. I said there, like, divorce is that common nowadays, her and me staying together just a bit different. I remember when we got married to, I'll never forget it, the 26th of September 1966, in the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Revenge. And I found out that day that Irish women's not looking husbands, hostages. You see, this last 27 years, I've been paying the ransom every Friday morning. Where's my money? Where's my money? And 2 years ago was our 25th wedding anniversary. Girls, that's awful room. Did you get yours, Mrs. Yours isn't done yet. Have you had your... Have you? Was he romantic and all, was he? I took a woman back to the same hotel we got 25 years ago. We got the same room and all we got 25 years ago. The only difference this time, I was the one in the bathroom crying my eyes out. Because you remember when you get married, you see in the 60s, that we knew nothing. Honest to God, I hadn't a clue. The Vision says to me, where are we going on the honeymoon? I says, we're going foreign. You see, the whole week we were in Bundoran. Well, we booked into this hotel in Bundoran. Honest to God, it was that bad they stole our towels. And here's me, 19 years of age, newlywed, newly fangled, knew nothing. I was that bad in the honeymoon, there was a peeping Tom outside the window booing me. And she come walking. Oh God, thank you, mister. Was it the same story of your honeymoon, son, was it? Is that why you clapped first, is it? And she come walking out of the bathroom en suite. You know the way the bathroom's next door? In her see-through nightie. I knew it was see-through because you could see her vest under it. And here's me doing the Rambo bit, you know, round the room and not a stitch on. She says, will you get away from that window or people think I took you for your money? But I got her. And the wedding reception was a disaster. Like, her ma was crying. Don't know what the hell she was crying for. I wasn't marrying her. And her dad was crying and my ma was crying. Even the wedding cake was in tears. I was that sort of thing. And then you get married and then the children arrived along. First time I got a boy and the second time I got a girl. Whole lot of times we didn't get nothing. Now we've one of each now. Protestant and the Catholic. It's the best way, you know, because it's not all like, you know, coming to the Ardhowen Theatre in Enniskillen and everyone sitting, you know, in the lovely little seats and having drinkies during. It's not like this. You want to see the place I was in Belfast last Saturday night? One of them come here to shoot you clubs. You know, one of them you walk in Michael and walk out lame. And the two boys sitting in the corner playing drafts from manhole covers. And the wee cafe next door and on the menu, broken leg of lamb. No, Belfast a bad town, you know. Oh, it is. It is. I was in it the day and there was a whole crowd at the top of the road. And I says, has there been an accident or what? Says, no, one of the boys taxed his motor and they're all out to look at it. But when me and her got married all them years ago, you know, it wasn't like it is today, you know. I went to Belfast to get work. And you see when you come from the country, like, it's different. I got a job in the building trade. And I remember the first morning in the site, wee Sammy was leaning on the shovel, you know, looking into the hole and sucking the butt, remember? His mate me says, hi Sammy, the boss wants you in the office. He says, tell him I'd be no good in the office. He says to his mate Mick, he says, Mick, what's your cubic foot? Mick says, never worry, put a claim and you'll get compensation anyway. And the foreman sent him for a wheelbarrow, and he came back 10 minutes later with this wheelbarrow, and another one sitting inside it. He says, I just wanted the one wheelbarrow. He says, you didn't expect me to carry it. Everybody tries England. And I don't know why, because the English people doesn't even like us. Like the Englishman said to Paddy, Paddy, I was born an Englishman, I've lived all my life as an Englishman, and I hope to die as an Englishman. Paddy says, have you no ambition at all? To think we're thick, you know. And is it any wonder some of the things we do? I heard a radio programme down south, this is a true story, a lot of weeks ago, and this fella says, well, I have a special request here, you know, on the radio, a special request for Seamus Murphy from Cavan, who is 111. And he started playing the record and he stopped halfway through. He says, how long a minute? He says, he's not 111, he's ill. That's the truth. When them sort of things happen, that's why the English doesn't like us. We Pat and Mick were out in the middle of the jungle, and there was a lion. You know the way lions be lying. And Mick says, Paddy, is that lion sleeping or is it dead? Paddy says, I don't know. And Mick lifted a big rock and he threw it at the lion, hit it up the gob, and the lion and took a run after him. And Mick says, run, Paddy, run. Paddy says, what would I run for? Sure, I didn't throw nothing at it. We Belfast man, he went looking the job up at the zoo in Belfast in charge of the lands. And he says to the zookeeper, he says, I'm here looking this job in charge of lands. No, I mean, he says, when does I start? And the zookeeper says, you'll just have to wait for there's another candidate for the job too. He says, oh, no bar. And this gorgeous blonde come walking up through the zoo grounds. Look at her. Did you see her too, did you? Did you? And she said she was after the job too. And the zookeeper says, the only way we can sort it out, who's going to go into the cage first and quieten the lambs down? And you remember the real male chauvinist pig says, oh, no bar. Women first. And she went in and she took her coat up and she hadn't a stitch on, mister. And the big lambs just walked over and licked their feet. And up and licked their face. And the zookeeper says to a man, he says, can you do any better than that? He says, I couldn't indeed. He says, but get that lion out of there first. That's a true story, honest to God. Like a wee Belfast fella, he bought them, they're sharks in Belfast, you know. This wee Belfast fella bought this wee motor car and he got it home and there was no floor in it. And he phoned up the garage, he says, excuse me, he says, that wee motor you sold me, he says, there's no floor in it. Your man says, sure, you just tell me you're looking at a wee motor to run around in. I've a wee motor I got myself, so I have. England. Did you ever go to England yourself, mister? Did you? Do you know in England you wouldn't get a job in the building trade in England, the length and breadth of it, unless you were Irish? Because all the foremen you see in the building sites, big farmers from Mayo and Cork and Galway. And Donegal. Because this wee Pakistani friend of mine went looking for a job. He says, excuse me, I'm looking at a job in the building trade. I'm good worker. I work all the hours that God is sending. Oh, your man says, no, you'll be getting to work unless you come from Cork or Mayo or Galway. Irish only employed on the site. He says, excuse me, but my granny, she is Irish. Oh, well, he says, that's different than you can tell your granny to start at 8:30 in the morning. That's the sort of people you have over there. And what about the Irish in America? Did you know NASA? You know them people that send the rockets to the moon and them? Well, they were sending a rocket to the moon and they put two monkeys and a wee Irish fella in the rocket going up. And they were sitting out in the big sight for going up into the sky. And they come on, like mission control. Mission control to monkey 1. Press buttons for take off, and the wee monkey went, all the computer buttons, and she went, and about 20 minutes later, it said, NASA control to monkey 2. Press computer for separation modules. No, you only monkey, all the computer buttons, and they separated in midair. And about 20 minutes later, I come on after that there. It says, mission control to Paddy Murphy. Paddy says, oh no. Feed the monkeys and don't touch the buttons. Us, you see, they think we're thick all right throughout the world. The English don't like us when we beat them at anything, but so don't. Oh, they hate it. Sure, it was 1978, I think it was. Ireland beat England 19-0 at the rugby in Lansdowne Road. And the English were coming out after the game and wants to. Imagine being beaten 19-0 by a crowd of paddies. Wee Paddy heard him and says, and the way he has played, you're lucky he's got 0. We have to get the upper hand sometime. What about the wee Irish fella on Mastermind? Do you know him with Magnuson? And they had him in the big chair, the big leather chair, and the lights shining on him, just like this here. And Magnus says, who started the American War of Independence? Dead silence. And about a minute later, somebody shouts out of the crowd, that's right, Paddy, tell them nothing. My favourite story, people always say, what's your favourite story? My favourite story is the story of the phone call. The phone rang this day in this wee house, and this wee voice says, hello. There's Luxembourg breaking in. Hello. And this man says, this is the Bendix washing machine company. Is your mummy in? Yes. Can I speak to your mummy, please? No. Why not? She's busy. Is your daddy in? Yes. Can I speak to your daddy? No. Why not? He's busy too. Is there anybody else, sir? Says yes. Says who? He says the police. He says, can I speak to the sergeant in charge of the police? He says no. Says why not? Says he's busy. Says, there any ordinary constables there? He says yes. He says, can I speak to one of them? He says no. Says why not? Says they're all very busy. Says, is there anybody else there? Says yes. He says who? He says the army. He says, can I speak to the captain in charge of the army? He says no. He says why not? Says he's busy. Says, are there any ordinary soldiers there? Says yes. He says, can I speak to one of them? Says no. Says why not? Says they're all very busy. He says, your mummy's in, your daddy's in, and the house is full of police and the house is full of soldiers. He says, what are they all doing there? He says, they're looking for me. It's not a good wee story, isn't it? Yeah, isn't this recession terrible, isn't it? Recession, means different things in different parts of the world. Did you know that? Do you know in America, when they mention this word recession, you have people jumping out of 40-story buildings in Manhattan, stockbrokers. And in London, when you mention the recession, you have them getting the double-barreled shotguns out. And they mention the recession in Enniskillen, they go to Spain for 2 weeks. Saying, sure, it'll be over by the time we get home again. They do, don't you? Wee Belfast woman, she was going to Spain their holidays, and she says to the husband, she says, here, Sammy, do you see me and you goes to Spain this year on our holidays? I'm going topless. Says, yeah, what? Says, I'm going topless. All the women's going topless in the continent, and I'm going topless. He says, Maggie, you're not built for going topless. She says, I don't care, I'm going topless, for all the women's going topless. And they headed out to Spain and down to the beach. He says, Maggie, you going topless? She says, I am, Sammy. She says, I'm taking nothing to do with you. And he headed back to the apartment again, and he got the binoculars out, And he's watching her through the binoculars, and she got the top off and the suntan cream and all on her, and she's lying getting a good roasting they got there. And this big fella came up and started talking to her. Well, her being from Belfast, she just threw around the left fist and decked him, and run like blazes back to the apartment, and there's wee Sammy sitting as if he'd seen nothing. He says, you didn't stay out too long. She says, they hit Sammy, it's shocking, it's like a savannah bath out there. It's terrible. He says, you're Larry, I was watching you. What did that big fella say to you? He says, he didn't say nothing. He says, go on, what did he say? He says, he didn't say nothing. He says, go on, what did he say to you? Oh, he just looks at me and he says, hey, Jimmy, where do you get the deck chairs around here? Wouldn't you die, George, if that happened? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? You would just die in a million pieces. You would. We drunk coming down Enniskillen one night full and he's going like that there. And two nuns come walking up towards him, and one walked around that side and the other one walked around that side. He says, how does she do that? Or this other wee boy's going down the street, 9 gallons of draft Drambuie in him, and he's walking like that there, So he didn't spill nothing. And hook him down the street, only the wee priest, and he went, God bless you, my son. And the wee drunk gets the arm around him and starts calling him Jimmy, because that's the only names that wee drunks know. Have you noticed that? And he's going, hey, Jimmy, why are you wearing your collar on back to front? He says, because I'm a father. He says, I'm a father. He says, but I don't wear my collar on back to front. He said, but you don't understand. He says, I'm the father of thousands. He says, it's not your collar should be on back to front. She's going, oh. This wee man, 92 years of age, went to confessions. He says, Father, I'm 92 and I've got a 24-year-old girl in trouble. And the priest says, that's a terrible way for a Catholic man to be carrying on. Well, Godfather says, I'm not a Catholic, I'm Protestant. And the priest says, if you're a Protestant, what the hell are you telling me for? He says, at 92, I'm telling everybody. You wouldn't suppose, wouldn't you? 92 years of age. God, if I made it, imagine that. There's your man who went to be sponsored walk down there. I'm from Banbridge, actually, in County Down. All people wonder where you come from. And I'm a member of a very large family. Like the Waltons. We were bigger than the Waltons. 13 of us. And 2 dead before I was born was 15. And my ma and dad was 17. I was desperate. And they tell you about the big happy family. Only consolation in the family I say is the toilet seat never got cold. And do you remember the old days too? You had to sleep 4 in the one bed. Remember that? And I could swim before I was 5. And it was different than the rest. There's always a different one, isn't there? Every family is always a different one. I was different. I was born that caesarean section. Didn't affect me at the time. It does now. Sometimes when I'm getting out of the motor and trying to get through the sunroof. And you see, when I was born, I was the ugliest wee thing you ever set eyes on. Honest to God. See, when I was born, I was that ugly. The midwife held me up and she hit me a slap in the mouth. And my mother, God love her, had morning sickness after I was born. I was that ugly, my ma never even pushed the pram. She always pulled it. And there'd be me lying in the pram with a baldy head and the big ears. My ears was that big, my ma and dad was taking bets on I was going to walk or fly. And I hated being wee. I hated it. When you went to school and all, I hated it. Remember the teacher, Fitzpatrick, yes miss, where was Anne Boulon to be hated? I says, just under her chin. She says, where's Uganda? I says, he's still up in bed with my granny. She says, who was it in the Bible gave Adam the apple? It says Granny Smith. I was thick. And another thing too, we knew nothing about SEX. No. See, in the 60s, nothing. I used to come home and school and say, Mommy, where do babies come from? Mind your own business. Mommy, where does babies come? Mind your own business. And you got a whap round the jaw. Remember they got there? And every Irish mother told every Irish son the same old story. You are found under a cabbage leaf up the garden. Remember that one? Remember? And I used to come home from school and I was hooking one day and I found a wee caterpillar and I says, you're dead ugly, but you're my wee brother. It was so different, wasn't it? Growing up in them days. And even the very courting rituals, in our days, there was none of going to the pubs and getting booze and all. Not at all, not in them days. Down to the local cafe. bottle of Coke and 6 of us sitting, over the one bottle of Coke. And now it's pubs and discos and we had the dances. Remember the dances? Oh, God, do you remember the dances? 500 men on this side, do you remember? 1,200 women over the under. You say to your mate, I'm away to get this big blondie bit, and you would dander up in the winkle picker shoes. Remember the winkle pickers? The most comfortable shoes you could put on if you just had the one toe. And you get to look at your woman and like, oh, mother of God, look at the gum in your woman, come on, the hell on. Everybody has the right to be ugly, but she abuses the privilege. Do you remember that? And look at the gum on the one beside her. Look, she's like a melted Wellington. Look at the face, not there. And you see, it was fear. It was fear. You see, the kids of the 90s have something that we didn't have in the 60s. Vodka. We had no Dutch courage. You'd go to them dances, no drink, nothing. There's big paisley serves the devil's buttermilk was not permitted. You'd go stone cold sober and you had to face that wall of female resentment. Remember? You'd say to your mate, well, we'll hit the dance floor. No, how long does the few gets up? And then the floor would be packed, and then you get the hand in the pocket, walk around, as if I'm not afraid of women, like nodding at them. Are you getting up? No. Or if you're real sophisticated, come on. Down in Ballymena men used to walk up to women and say, are you rising? Honestly, are you rising? How was it? No drink, no. I remember my mate saying to me, Gene, if you took a wee drink, it would relax you. And I took a wee drink, and right enough like it fairly relaxed me. I was in a coma for 3 days. Remember the first drink? All your mates, come on, get it down, you'll not do you down but a harm. And then an hour later out in the toilet, come on, get it up, it'll do you the world of good. And you coming home with drink and your mother would kill you. But you see, the whole world has changed now. Kids do it different. And, the first girl ever I went out with my life, big sexy one from Dungannon. She had suspenders and all over her jeans. And now we were out in the car and she nearly had the neck yet off me. She was kissing around my ears and everything, and I'm sitting on my fingers through her handbag. She says to me, do you want to get in the back? I says, no way, you girlie. She says, why not? I says, I want to stand in the front with you. We just didn't know, so we didn't know. And you'd go to them dances, I remember going to a dance one night in Bundoran, and I was dancing this big blondie one from Dublin. She says, I'm only here for the weekend. I says, I'm dancing as quick as I can. I says, remember? I says, can I have the last dance with you? She says, you're having it. Says, you have lovely eyes, I could live in them. Said, they suit you, there's a sty in one of them. The torture we went through in the 60s over women wasn't ordinary, so it wasn't crazy. What about me drunk coming home from the pub one night and he fell over his woman's bin and a big black cat jumped out. He says, imagine somebody throwing a good cat like that away. Another thing too, people in the 60s were far slimmer than they are in the 90s. Do you know why that is? When we came out of those dances in the 60s at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whatever it was in the morning, there was no chip vans outside and Chinese carriage going to 3 o'clock in the morning, kebab houses going, and no, there was nothing like that at all. Now, sure, you couldn't move for Chinese and Indian restaurants all over the place. And if you noticed it, them Chinese restaurants, I think it's the one fella builds them all. Have you noticed that? Because you go in, the carriage, and the counters is always that height. And Chinese people don't leave. And you're standing reading the menu, and you think you're on your own. And this wee voice goes, what do you want? And do you ever notice the wee Chinese men, when they give you your chips, every one of them's got sore fingers? They give you your chips and they go, soft finger. Soft finger. Salt and vinegar, Pat. Salt and vinegar. Another thing too, I'll give you a wee tip. All the fellas in the bands do this here. Do you see if you're coming out of the pub late at night and the Chinese carriage packed to the doors and you don't want to wait, tell you how to get served, right? You lean up against the wall and you go, bleh. Bleh. And they go, so don't be sick in here. Bleh. So don't be sick in here now. What? You don't be sitting here. What do you want? 2 chicken curries and onion rings and fried rice, and they serve you first to get rid of you. That's the way to do it. The next night you try that one, it works. No. And I love Indian grub. Oh, India, it's my favourite. Have you got an Indian up here, have you? It's great, isn't it? It's lovely. You ever get them onion badges and you find out why Gandhi wore a nappy? And you get the vindaloo curries when you have to put the toilet roll in the fridge for a week. No. Oh, they're perfect. There's a lovely one opened in our town, and I was in on Sunday night. It says to the Indian fellow, "What is the specialty of the house?" He says, "Chicken ding." I says, "What the hell's chicken ding?" He says, "Chicken done in microwave." You know the way the missus the microwave goes ding. Suppose you have a gas one, have you? Girls, have you seen the new microwave beds? Have you seen them? God, they're great. Get 8 hours sleep in 12 minutes. Here, do you know where it's very nice? The Killy Heverin, out the road, was awfully nice. Me and the Vision was on one night for a wee night out, and there was duck on the menu. And I says to the waitress, "What's the duck like?" She says, "It's like a chicken, but it's bigger." And the head waiter said this, he fell a wine for table 12, and he went, "Oh." Come here. This wee fella came home from school one day and says, "Daddy, will you help me with my homework?" He says, "I will, son." He says, "Daddy, what's the difference in theory and fact?" And the dad thought for a minute or two, theory and fact. We'll think now. Yes, he says, "I went into the kitchen and asked your ma, would she go with the next door neighbour for £5,000? And he then came out and says, 'Hi, Dad.' She said she would. He says, "I went into the kitchen and asked your sister, would she sleep with the next door neighbour for £5,000? And then he came out and says, 'Hi, Dad.' She says she would. He says, 'There you are, son. The theory is me and you should have £10,000, but the fact of the matter is we're living with 2 sluts.'" Lovely lady, that one down there, honest to God. What about the fella into the pet shop in Oma? He says, "I want to buy a wasp." Your man says, "We don't keep wasps." He says, "You have 6 in the window." 2 fleas coming out of the pictures. One says to the other, "Well, we'll walk or take a dog." This fella, this is a true story. This fella was trying to sell these Bibles, during the recession, because the recession has been terrible, you see. And people just haven't got the money. And he couldn't sell them. And his best mate, wee Sammy, who happened to have a wee stoppage in his speech when he got excited, Sammy says to him, sure, if you want, hey, I'll give you a hand. He says, "God, Sammy, son, if I can't sell them, there's hardly much chance of you selling them." He says, "Sure, give us 3 anyway." So he got the 3 Bibles and away he went, and he came back the next night. He says, whoa, would you have another 5 Bibles? So he got 5 more, and he came back the next night. He says, whoa, would you have another 5? He says, "God, Sammy, you haven't them all sold, have you?" He says, "I certainly they're sold." He says, "God, Sammy, I tried them and I couldn't sell them at all. How come you were able to sell them?" Sammy says, hey, just went to the people and asked them, would they like to buy a Bible for £15, or would they like me to read it to them? You would soon buy one, like, wouldn't you? Honest to God. Any golfers in? Anybody play golf? I love the golf. I took it up about 2 years ago. God, it's great. Like, during the Irish Open down at Mount Juliet, there's usually 2 Kerry men, and they're sitting sipping pints of Guinness, and the golfers on the TV, and they're sort of half watching it. One old fella says to the other, "Jez," he says, "that Nick Faldo's some player, isn't he?" The other old fella says, "Why wouldn't he be? Sure, there's nobody marking him." This fella was playing golf one day down in Belfast, and he says, "Do you see that fella teeing off in the 4th tee at the minute?" He says, "He's one of the best golfers in the country." He says, "He plays off 4 and he's blind." He says, "You couldn't play off 4 and be blind, that's impossible." He says, "No, this fella's brilliant. He's into all kinds of sports. He's a phenomenon, or a big word like that. And he says, you'll see him later in the clubhouse. So we're in the clubhouse talking, he says, hey, you're a great golfer. He says, I am. He says, what do you play off? He says, 4. He says, is it true you're blind? He says, I am. He says, how can you play off 4 and be blind? Well, he says, I have these special 7 irons and 8 irons and 9 irons that were made by Severiano Ballesteros. He's a golfer, mister. You know? And they have braille readouts and heat sensors, and every time you hit the ball, the braille readout tells you 150, 200, hook, slice, draw, fade. God, he says, them's great. He says, what other sports do you do? He says, I do a bit of water sport, you know, a bit of water skiing and do a bit of swimming as well. And I've recently took up parachute jumping. He says, parachute jumping? And you blind? He says, that must be hard. He says, no. He says, you just jump out of the airplane, and, he says, and you count up to 10, and you pull the strings in the parachute, and then you float down. And then when you're 30 foot off the ground, you lift your knees up into your chest for the landing. But your man says, if you're blind, how the hell do you know when you're 30 feet off the ground? He says, the lead in the guide dog slackens. That's true. It's a long way from golf, isn't it? What about 1991? I was thinking back there when Down won the football in Dublin, and somebody met Ian Paisley about a week later. Says, well, Mr. Paisley, what do you think of them taking Sam Maguire back across the border? Well, I thought it was about time they extradited somebody. Come here. Do you ever go to any of those big sporting occasions? They're brilliant. See when Ireland play England in the rugby at Lansdowne Road. Oh, brilliant. The passion and and you couldn't get tickets for love nor money. And I was at one, and there in the middle of the stand, there was one empty seat. And I says to this wee fellow, what does that seat doing empty at a match like this? Your man says, I had a ticket for the wife, but she died. I says, God, she knew relatives could have used the ticket up for her. She said she had, but they're a funny old crowd, they wanted to go to the funeral. You see, everything goes to the wall. Everything goes to the wall. You know? I came through Ballinamalard one night, and I was going like blazes, and they killed this wee woman's rooster. And I went up to the house and said, Mrs. I killed your rooster, I'd like to replace it. She says, place yourself, the hens is round the back. Or what about the wee fellow was late for school one day, and the teacher says, what kept you? He says, please, sir, I had to bring the cow to the bull. He said, could your dad not have done it? He says, no, sure, it has to be the bull. Could you explain that to him, love? Could you? There's a wee man down there, he didn't understand it at all. Boy was coming home one night from a hotel in Omagh, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's driving down, you know, towards the Ballygolly roundabout, at 3:30 in the morning. The red light. Nobody can you see the red light, the driving fairly improves, doesn't it? And he winds the window down, good evening, Ossifer. Suppose there's been an accident or something. He says, no, it's a routine police check. He says, where are you coming from this night? He says, was there a big function up in the Silver Birches Hotel in Omagh? He says, were you drinking? He says, definitely. He says, what do you have to drink? He says, 8 pints of Guinness, 7 double black bush, a bottle of red wine with my dinner, and then I had a double brandy. He says, would you mind getting out of the car and blowing into this wee bag? He says, what's wrong? Do you not believe me? Imagine doing that there, you a feed of drinking. You'll go mad, wouldn't you? Do you know where it was 1 year too? If we had any visitors in from foreign parts, you know, like Australia or Canada or... No, we're all right. The Aussies are thick. The Aussies are thick as bricks. I was in Melbourne, gave your man the passport. He says, have you got a criminal record? He says, why is it still compulsory? And on Neighbours. Do you watch Neighbours, do you? Do you know why it's on twice a day? Do you? That's that bloody bad you don't believe it the first time. No. But the problem is flan to them places. I hate flan. Well, no, I don't hate flan, I hate crashing. Because you know when you go up to the airport, they tell you that air travel is the safest form of travel in the world. And you arrive up at the airport, and the first word you see, terminal. And the second word, departures. And you get on an airplane, and you're strapped in, and there's always an Egypt in a pair of white overalls and a big spanner walking around the plane going... And then he goes to the pilot like that there, but he never gets on. Well, she went down on runway at Belfast International Airport, 284 mile an hour, and she just lifted like that there. And here's me with a belly full of duty-free Mars bars. And just as she lifted, I went all around the place. And the air hostess says, can you not use the wee bag in front of you? I says, I didn't even know the wee woman's name. Oh, the company's mad. God up in heaven, you know, got fed up with the whole state of the world. He did. He got fed up with the wars in Bosnia and the starving in Africa and all the troubles. And he sent down for the Pope and Ian Paisley and President Bush. And he got them up to heaven and he lectured them about the whole state of the world. And he said he was that fed up, he was going to end the world in 4 days, and had 4 days to get it all sorted out. And President Bush came down, he went on TV in America. He says, well, people of America, I got some good news and I got some not so good news. He talks like John Wayne, doesn't he? And he says, the good news is that there is a God, and I have spoke to God personally myself. And the not so good news is the world's going to end in 4 days. And the Pope came down. Pope was down here, you know. Well, he wasn't here, he was down the road a bit. It was 1979. Remember, he was in Drogheda. It was that many Catholics across the border, that big place he left with 1,000 bricklayers to brick it up. Remember, that was the day he told the glue sniffers that he loved them. Remember, he says, young people of Ireland, I love you. He says, I got some good news and I got some not so good news. And the good news is that there is a God and I have spoke to God. And the not so good news is the world is going to end in 4 days. And then Big Ian came down. Well, yourselves, people of Ulster. People of Ulster, I've got some good news and I've got some absolutely brilliant news. And the good news is that there is a God and I have spoke to God personally myself. And the absolutely brilliant news is there's definitely not going to be United Ireland. 4 days wouldn't be enough for it. Well, but this boy one night, and he's talking in his sleep, and he's going, oh, Linda, oh, Linda, oh, Linda. And the wife digging, hey, you! Who's Linda? And quick as a flash, she said, oh, it's the name of a horse. One of the boys at work gave me a tip for a horse run tomorrow in Campton and I have to. Name of a horse. And he arrived home from work the next night at 6:30 and all the cases were sitting at the door. And he says to the wife, what's going on? He says, your horse phoned. You have a curly caught on that, haven't you, wouldn't you? Here, come here. Do you know where I was last week? I was up at the maternity wing of the hospital. Only a message. It was only a message. At my age, you should be praying for happy death instead of more wains. And have you noticed too, the DHS do everything with posters now, and there's a big poster of the pregnant lady. You know that one with the cigarette, and it says, for your baby's sake, do not smoke. And underneath it said, the first 2 minutes of life are the most dangerous. And somebody had written underneath, the last 2 minutes is nothing right home about either. The health service is the way to places, isn't it? I was up at the hospital the other day, and there's a big sign up saying, guard dogs operating. That's taking it a bit far, isn't it? And the wee nurses, God love them, they're that good, because I was in the hospital last year, one night I collapsed. They thought I had a hole in my heart and they found a polo man stuck in my vest. And the big nurse says, would you like a bedpan? I says, have you to do your own cooking in here as well? And the wee man in the next bed says, nurse, I can't feel my legs. She says, I know, I've amputated your arms. And I'm in and I says, nurse, give us a kiss. She says, no. I says, go on, give us a kiss. She says, no. I says, why not? She says, I shouldn't even be in bed with you. That's crazy world we live in. I was at the doctor this morning. He says, have you flu? I says, no, I came down the bike. This wee boy down in Belfast was working in one of the factories and he got all his fingers cut off in one of the machines and they rushed him up to the hospital and the surgeon says, well, what actually happened? He says, I was working up in the factory and I got all my fingers cut off in the machine. He says, where are your fingers now? He says, they're lying up in the factory. He says, why didn't you bring them with you? He says, I couldn't pick them up. Did you hear about this Irish fella? He loaned his mate £10,000 to get plastic surgery done. And he's looking at the money back and he doesn't know what he looks like now. That would be unfortunate if that happened to you, wouldn't it? We drunk one night and he's coming home from the pub. You know they're always coming home from the pub and they always want to get a feed in you. And he into a chip shop. Up to the counter, he says, excuse me, have you got Raggy 3? He says, pardon? He says, have you got Raggy 3? He says, you're in a chip shop. He says, what about Police Academy 4? He says, you're in a chip shop. He says, what about Fatal Distraction? He says, get out, you drunken idiot. And he died and he came in about an hour later up the counter again and says, excuse me, can I have a hamburger and chips? Well, your man says, you know where you are now then. He says, I'm very sorry. He says, can I get you anything else? He says, have you got a fish called Wanda? Huh? That was the video of that one. The great Jimmy McGee. You know Jimmy McGee, don't you? From RTE. This is a true story. During the last World Cup campaign when the Republic were playing in Italy, they won a match, you see it, and all the fans are coming in to see it the night going, here we go, here we go. No, Jack's Army and all that. And they were going clean match. And there's the great Jimmy McGee coming up the street. The memory man from RTE knows everything that's to be known about sport. And they all surrounded him. Jimmy, it's yourself. Come here, I want you, Jimmy. And all the boys follow. Jimmy, come here and answer a couple of questions first. Jimmy says, throw them out. Jimmy, tell us this. Here's a question for you, Jimmy. Who was it scored 2 goals for Aston Villa in the 1957 FA Cup final against Man United? Let me think now. That was Peter McParland, he says, from Newry in County Down, Northern Ireland international score. Jesus, Jimmy, you know your stuff. There's not a thing you don't know. Another boy shouts out, I have a question for you, Jimmy. Here's one for you, here's me. Throw it out. He says, Jimmy, who was it in 1960 was the captain of the Down team that took Sam Maguire across the border for the first time? Let me think now. That was 1960. That would have been Kevin Mustin, he says, from the Clonduff Club in County. God, Jimmy, you know your stuff. God, jeez, you know it all, like, don't you? And there's one wee boy at the back of the crowd, and he's completely out of it. He's going, Jimmy, I bet you'll not know this one. I bet you any money, Jimmy, you'll not know this. Throw it out. Jimmy, you'll not definitely not know this one. He says, throw it out. He says, Jimmy, where the hell's our hotel? He was more interested in getting home, but he wasn't anything else. Yeah. Do you know the way I tell stories about the wife and all? God love her. She's all right. Like, I'd be out nearly every night doing her show business and all, and she sent her picture to the Lonely Hearts Club. And they sent it back again and says they weren't that lonely. I'm only sure she's not really that bad. Me man from Enniskillen years and years ago. Do you remember years ago before people were as affluent as they are today, and they've all these credit cards and things, they used to have a thing called the tick. Remember that? And this wee man from Enniskillen was down in Belfast in Burton's shop, and he got this lovely suit, and he got it in the tick, the pound down and the change of a dress. And Burton's kept writing and sending thread and leathers, and not a heap needed he paying it. And they sent more letters, and he still didn't pay. And they had a thing in Burton's in those days whereby they called on your Christian sense of duty, and they sent him this wee letter, and they put a quotation from the Bible on it. You were naked, and we clothed you. But he knew the Bible too, and he sent one back to them. You were a stranger, and I took you in. I suppose there's nobody in from Cavan. Not at all. They wouldn't make the trip from Cavan. Cavan people, they get the name of being tight-fisted. You know the way the Scots are supposed to be tight-fisted, And one fella says to the other, I see Earl Hamish died and left £30,000. And one fella says, no, he didn't leave it, he was took away from it. It's the same thing in Cavan, It's the same in Cavan. See in Cavan, they're that miserable in Cavan, they get the windows double glazed so the children can't hear the ice cream vans. I was in a house in Cavan one night last week. Talk about tight-fisted. They had a fork in the sugar bowl. What about the wee Cavan man got the phone message from the manager of the bank? He says, I just phoned you up to tell you that you're £800 overdrawn on your account. The wee Cavan man says, what was my account like last month? He says, last month he says you were £300 in credit. The wee Cavan man says, did I phone you? It doesn't work, lads. I've tried it. True story. This wee farmer out in Ballinamalard had a wee farm, you see, and he says to the son one day, see, what'll I tell you? That's where they're talking Enniskillen, isn't it? See, what'll I tell you? See, I'm going to quit the farm and I'm going to give the farming to yourself. And the young fella says, Dad, you're not a bit soft. See, the Irish farm's nearly done. See, you need to spend about £40,000 on it to turn around a farm at all. The old fella says, tell you what we'll do. See, we'll get the books done up there with your man. And so, see, we'll head in, we'll talk to the manager and the AIB in Enniskillen. The Amateurs Investment Bureau. We'll have a bit of a yarn with him. So they headed in to see the manager and the Allied Irish, and they presented the books, and the manager looked at it. Oh, God, see, no problem at all. The Allied Irish would be pleased to lend you money in that. There's good equity in the land and the outbuildings and the fields and all the rest. So, no problem at all. We'll sign it up now. And the old fellow says, how long a minute before you sign on at all? Says he, tell us this, says he, what class of interest would you be charging? Oh, says he, 14%. Boys, dear, that's powerful, dear. As a matter of interest, says he, tell us this, says he, how often do you bath? Your man says, bath? He says, if a bath every Saturday night, we'll let you know. So they headed down to the Ulster Bank and they put the same set of books in front of the Ulster Bank manager and he had to look at it. Oh, says he, no bother at all, the Ulster Bank. Would you be pleased to lend you money in that? No problem, we'll sign it up now. Now the fellow says, how long a minute before you sign anything? Says he, what class of interest would you be charging? Oh, says he, 16.5%. 16.5%, God, says he, your head's got it. Says he, as a matter of interest, says he, tells us, how often do you bath? Your man says, bath? He says, have a shower every morning and have a shower every night. We'll let you know. So the son and the old fella was heading down to Blake's for a pint, you see. And the young fella says, Dad, says he, I suppose we'll be doing the deal, says he, with the AIB, they're only charging 14%. And the one buying the Ulster Bank's charging 16.5%. Suppose we'll be doing the deal with the AIB. The old fella says, well, not indeed, we'll be doing the deal with the Ulster Bank. Says he, Dad, why is that? Says he, I'll tell you why it is. The only man in the Ulster Bank says he has a shower every morning and a shower every night. And believe you me, you'll be kissing his ass for the next 25 years. See, if you're looking money, I'm telling you. Oh, God. This wee Belfast millionaire was over in England in his Rolls Royce. And he was parked 20 miles on the other side of Leeds, you know, and he's at the side of the road, in the hedge. And he's going, bleh, bleh, oh, God, I'm bad. Oh, God, I'm real bad. And the police car came driving up with the chief constable from Leeds Police. And are you going to be sick, missus, are you? The chief constable from Leeds Police and the wee rookie constable beside him. So they spies this roller with the Belfast registration. So they decided to sit back and observe. So they're sitting back in the police car watching. Now, they don't have the same police cars in England that they have here. You know the way here they have them double-glazed, armour-plated 4x4 Ford Sierras. The English police, they're driving them new 16-valve Skodas. Have you seen them, have you? God, they're great. 8 valves in the engine and 8 valves in the radio. Do you know the difference in a Skoda and a Jehovah's Witness? You can slam a door in a Jehovah's Witness. Or the difference in a Skoda and the flu. You can get rid of the flu. So the dander's up, you see. The dander's up. Good evening, sir. All right? Oh, God, I'm bad. God, I'm real bad. Says, have you been drinking, sir? Oh, don't talk to me about drinking, boy. Don't mention drinking to me, boy. I've been on the drink from a graph of Stanley Sea Link this morning and Stranraer. God, I'm... So, is this your car, sir? He says, of course, she's mine. Hank of a joyrider or something. He said, would you mind accompanying us down to the police car, please? So they took him down to the police car and they breathalyzed him. And the chief constable said to the young constable, you drive the police car on back to Leeds and I'll drive him back in the Rolls Royce for official charging. They did. So the wee constable, he scoots off in the Skoda away down the road to Leeds, you know. And there's the chief constable linking this wee drunk up the road and him going, oh, God, I'm bad. It's not very often the police will help a fellow with a drop of drink in him. Oh, God, I'm bad. And he got up to the front door of the Rolls Royce and opened it, and there sitting behind the steering wheel was his chauffeur. Oh, my God, he says, I seem to have made a dreadful mistake, haven't I, your man? Says, maybe you haven't. Oh, God, he says, I'm bad. But he says, you're far worse, you have 20 miles to walk it back to Leeds. And then they try and say, oh, boys, it's thick. Wee fella from Belfast was living over in England. You know the way there's a lot of them as well. And last Christmas, he sent his mummy home for Christmas, you know, a rare exotic African bird that speaks 5 languages. And he phoned her up in Boxing Day. He says, hello, Mommy, it's Sean here. Did you get the bird? She said, I did, Sean, it was delicious. God, Mommy, he says, that bird wasn't for cooking. That was a rare exotic African bird that speaks 5 languages. She says, God, Sean, it's a wonder I didn't say something before I put it in the oven. Children are brilliant, aren't they? There was somebody doing a wee survey, you know, around the houses. You know these ladies with the clipboards and all that? And she come to this door, you see it, and she knocked it. This wee fella came out. And she says, hello. She says, hello. He says, can I speak to your mommy, please? No. Why not? She's not in, so she's not. He says, can I speak to your daddy? No. Why not? He's not in neither, so he's not. Says, is there anybody in? Says, yes. Says, who? Says, my sister. Can I speak to your sister? He says, how long? And then he came out 5 minutes later. He says, you can't speak to my sister neither, so you can't. She says, why not? Says, I can't get her out of the pram. Here, come here. They've opened one of them. Have you noticed that in the papers? They've opened one of them shops in Belfast. You know, one of these ones where men can go in and dress up as women and all. They have. Honest to God. Because there's these two old dolls who were standing outside it one day last week, and this young fella came in, and he walks into the shop, and he came out 5 minutes later dressed as a wee girl. And one woman says to her, she says, that's a disgrace. She says, that's shocking. That's terrible. That wee fella went in there and came out 5 minutes later dressed as a wee girl. That's a disgrace. The old woman says, excuse me, she says, if you don't mind, but that's my son you're talking about. Oh, she says, I'm awful sorry, I didn't realise you were his mother. She says, I'm not his mother, I'm his father. That's like that, so it is. Here, I went to get my hair cut the other day, and the barber says to me, you're going bald. I says, would you get a move on? He says, do you want some afro in the back? I says, no, I'll stay in the shop like everybody else. Here, do you remember the old days? Some of the older men remember. Do you remember the old days before they had the sort of the safety razor and the electric razor? All the men used to go to the barbers on the Monday morning to get a shave. Do you remember? And they'd all sit low and listen to the crack of the town getting soap and all that. And the wee barbers on the drink the night before and the hand was shaking, let him cut there and the blood's running out of him. And the barber says, do you want me to wrap your head in a hot towel? He says, no, I'll take it home under my arm. And the next boy's in there cutting away at him, turning the blood down his good shirt and everything. He says, did I ever shave you before? He says, no, I lost my arm during the war. The world has changed, like, hasn't it? Sure, years ago, the one went into the shop, up to the counter. She says, kind of a half pound of bacon. The man says, lean back. She says, kind of a half pound of bacon. And the other woman up to the butcher's, she says, can I have a chicken? He says, do you want to pull it? She says, no, I'll take it in my shopping bag. Here, did I tell you that I went to a dentist the other day? I says, I'm very worried my teeth turned all yellow, what can I do? He says, wear a brown tie. This wee woman went, says, I hate the dentist, I'd rather have a baby. He says, how long to adjust the chair? Did you get that? Did you understand that one, love, did you? Good girl, good girl. Fuck, the world's going mad. Come here, is there nobody in from Canada even tonight? Have you ever noticed that there when people, leave Ireland and go away to foreign places, everybody thinks they do better? Like this Canadian arrived home and this fella says, well, how are you getting on in Canada? Well, he says, in Canada I'm doing real well. He says, well, how come you're doing real well in Canada? Well, he says, in Canada, he says, I work every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's 12 hours. Your man says, that's nothing to see in Enniskillen, says he. I work every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's 14 hours. Your man's sitting in the fingers going like that, 1, 2. Did any of you ever win the lotto up this country, did they? It's great, isn't it? See the lotto. Remember a few weeks ago, 6 million or something like that. And I says to the wife, if I win the lotto, I'll have you all around the world looking for me. Wee Paddy phoned the wife one night. He says, I just phoned you up to tell you I've won £10,000 the football pools. Packed the cases. Oh, God, she says, Paddy, summer clothes or winter clothes? He says, they both. You're going back to your ma. Anybody from down Belfast or anything like that? No. Any chance of a lift home? How can we man with the dark hair there and the glasses and all? Is that where you're from, son? Belfast? Keep your eye on your man. If he goes, we're all going. Oh, I don't know. Belfast's all right, like, isn't it? Isn't it? But, do you know, there's a wee thing I just must mention before I go. Do you know when it comes to children in need every year, the people in Northern Ireland give more money per head of the population than they do across in England or anything like that, do you know? Do you know why that is? Do you see, if you're going for a wee walk down through Belfast and somebody rattles a box at you, you put your hand in your pocket and you put £1 and you walk on. English people will say, well, what are you collecting for? Because this wee man was begging outside Harrods in London. You know Harrods is a big shop. Your man's laughing and only mentioning Harrods. And he's outside Harrods in London, and he had a placard around his neck and it says, veteran of the Falklands War. And English people never give him a halfpenny. And this wee fella from Belfast came out and slipped him a couple of quid. And your man says, muchas gracias, senor. See, that's the difference in it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you were a fabulous audience tonight. And we don't know when the video's coming out, but usually be on it. Unfortunately. Akies are not bad. God bless you. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Cheerio, Mrs. Bye-bye. Cheerio, son. The world has changed, like, hasn't it? Sure, years ago, the one went into the shop, up to the counter. She says, "Kind of a half pound of bacon." The man says, "Lean back." She says, "Kind of a half pound of bacon." And the other woman up to the butcher's. She says, "Can I have a chicken?" He says, "Do you want to pull it?" She says, "No, I'll take it in my shopping bag." Here, did I tell you that I went to the dentist the other day? I says, "I'm very worried my teeth's turning all yellow. What can I do?" He says, "Wear a brown tie." This wee woman went, says, "I hate the dentist, I'd rather have a baby." He says, "How long to adjust the chair?" Did you get that? Did you understand that one, love, did you? Good girl, good girl. Ach, the world's going mad. Come here, is there nobody in from Canada even tonight? Have you ever noticed that there when people, leave Ireland and go away to foreign places, everybody thinks they do better? Like this Canadian arrived home and this fella says, "Well, how are you getting on in Canada?" "Well," he says, "in Canada I'm doing real well." He says, "But how come you're doing real well in Canada?" "Well," he says, "in Canada," he says, I work every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's 12 hours. Your man says, "Sure, that's nothing." Says he, in Enniskillen, says he, "I work every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's 14 hours. Your man's sitting in the fingers going like that one, two.